It was about a week and a half after our annual 4th of July cookout. Our backyard is spacious, making it the perfect spot for hosting large gatherings, and every year we put on quite a spread for the entire neighborhood. It's a tradition of ours to invite everyone, even the neighbors we don't typically socialize with throughout the year. As usual, the cookout had been a hit, plenty of good food, laughter, and a relaxed atmosphere. By all accounts, it was another successful event. Now, several days later, it was a laid-back Sunday afternoon. My wife, Becky, and I had spent the morning running errands. We'd done some shopping and had lunch at the mall before returning home. With nothing else on the agenda, I was looking forward to a peaceful afternoon unwinding in front of the TV. The idea of sinking into the couch and losing myself in a game or movie felt like the perfect way to cap off the weekend. But, as luck would have it, just as I was getting comfortable, the doorbell rang. With a groan, I started to rise, but Becky had already sprung into action and was halfway to the door. Curious, I followed her to see who it was. When Becky opened the door, I was surprised to see Mark Diaz standing on our porch. He and his wife, Lisa, had attended the cookout, though we didn't usually interact with them much outside of neighborhood events. While polite and friendly at gatherings, I always felt a bit wary around them. Mark and Lisa were known to be members of a swingers club in the city, a lifestyle choice I personally didn't understand or agree with. It wasn't something I held against them, exactly, but it did keep me from forming any real bond with them. As a result, we had a cordial but distant relationship. Mark stood there with a casual smile, his hands tucked into his pockets as though he had all the time in the world. It wasn't often we had unannounced visitors, so I couldn't help but wonder why he'd stopped by, and what this unexpected visit might mean for our otherwise quiet Sunday afternoon. Becky greeted Mark with a warm smile and promptly invited him inside. Not wanting to appear unfriendly, I welcomed him into the living room and gestured for him to take a seat. Almost immediately, Becky asked Mark if he'd like a beer. That caught me off guard. We never kept beer, or any alcohol, for that matter, in the house. If friends were coming over for drinks, they knew to bring their own, or I'd make a quick run to the store a few blocks away. But having it readily available? That was unusual. Mark accepted her offer, and Becky disappeared into the kitchen, returning a moment later with a beer for him, and one for me as well. I thanked her, still a bit puzzled, and was further surprised when she settled down next to me on the couch. Normally, Becky would leave me to man talk and find something else to do if we had company. Today, though, her body language suggested she was both engaged and slightly uneasy, leaning forward with a subtle tension in her posture. Mark, now seated comfortably in the armchair at an angle to the couch, wasted no time getting to the point. "Alex," he began with a smile, "I'm sure you've heard the rumors about Lisa and me." I opened my mouth, ready to say something diplomatic about not listening to gossip, but Mark carried on before I could get a word in. "Well, those rumors? They're true. Lisa and I are part of a swingers club, and we've been active in it for about a year now. Honestly, it's been incredible for us. We love each other deeply, and this has added a whole new dimension to our relationship. It's always done with mutual consent and full transparency, and, to be honest, it's brought us closer together. Every time we come back from the club, we're more passionate with each other than ever." His candidness caught me off guard. It wasn't every day that a neighbor openly shared something so personal and unconventional. As I processed his words, I couldn't help but glance at Becky, who seemed unusually attentive, her expression thoughtful but unreadable. Clearly, this wasn't going to be the relaxing Sunday I had planned. "Mark," I interrupted, my voice firmer than I intended. I didn't want to hear any more. Frankly, I wasn't interested in the details of his personal life, and I certainly didn't appreciate the language he was using in front of Becky. A hint of irritation crept into my tone. "I really don't care about what you and your wife do. Was there another reason you came over?" Mark raised his hands slightly in a gesture of peace. "Alex, calm down. I can see you're upset, and that's not why I'm here. I'm not trying to make you angry." "Then why are you here?" I asked, my patience wearing thin. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Well, Becky approached us at the cookout and asked us a few questions, that's all." His words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I turned to Becky, completely stunned. She met my gaze, her cheeks flushing slightly as she offered a sheepish smile. Becky and I had been married in our early 30s. Before meeting her, I'd been a confirmed bachelor with no serious plans for settling down. Becky had been engaged once before, but her fiancé had ended the relationship after she discovered she couldn't have children. None of that mattered to me when I met her. I fell head over heels in love. I didn't care about having kids. All I wanted was her. As I struggled to process what Mark had just said, he spoke up again, his tone calm but insistent. Don't look so shocked, Alex. A lot of married couples explore this kind of thing. For Lisa and me, it's been a way to strengthen our bond. I glanced at Becky, still trying to make sense of what was happening. What exactly had she asked Mark and Lisa at the cookout, and why? My quiet Sunday had suddenly turned into something I hadn't been remotely prepared for. I could feel my frustration building with every word Mark said. My patience for this conversation was wearing thin, and I was quickly beginning to like him less and less. Alex, he pressed on, his tone almost patronizing. Don't you want to see Becky happy? I turned to look at Becky, who had remained silent so far. Her expression was hard to read, but I needed clarity. You're not happy making love with me? I asked her directly, my voice tinged with both hurt and confusion. She reached out and placed a hand on mine, her tone soft and reassuring. Of course I'm happy, honey. I love having sex with you, she said. Then she hesitated, glancing briefly at Mark before continuing. It's just that, well, it might be fun for both of us to try something different. You know, with someone else. Just for a change, that's all. Don't you see? It would only be about sex. It wouldn't mean we don't love each other. And it could even make our marriage stronger. Her words landed like a punch to the gut. Before I could respond, Mark chimed in again, clearly trying to sell the idea. Alex, think of it this way, he said, leaning forward slightly. If Becky loved dancing, and she wanted to try a variety of different dances, but you only knew how to do one of them, wouldn't you want her to enjoy herself by dancing with other partners who could show her the rest? I didn't even hesitate. No, Mark, I wouldn't. I shot back, my voice firm. If Becky wanted to learn new dances, I'd expect her to teach me so we could enjoy doing them together. Mark leaned back, momentarily taken aback by my response. Becky squeezed my hand lightly, but I couldn't tell if it was out of agreement, disappointment, or just an attempt to diffuse the tension. Whatever this conversation was meant to accomplish, I was certain of one thing. I wasn't buying it. Mark could clearly see from my expression that his efforts were getting him nowhere. My anger was evident, and it was obvious I wasn't about to agree to visit a swingers club with my wife. He turned to Becky, who scrunched her face slightly, a look of disappointment crossing her features. Well, Mark said with a shrug, glancing in her direction. We tried. He offered a faint smile and rose from his chair. No hard feelings, old pal, he added, extending his hand toward me. I ignored the gesture, my irritation bubbling over. I'll show you to the door, I said curtly, stepping between him and Becky as I headed to the entryway. As soon as he crossed the threshold, I all but shut the door behind him with a firm swing. I turned back toward the living room, where Becky was still standing, her arms crossed loosely. You didn't have to be so rude, she said, her tone defensive. I asked him to come over and talk to you. How long have you been having these fantasies about sleeping with other guys? I asked, my voice sharp. Then, before she could respond, I quickly added, they are just fantasies, aren't they? You haven't actually done anything, have you? Her eyes widened slightly, and she answered firmly, of course not. I would never do that. You have to know that. She sighed, her tone softening. That's why I asked him to come over. I thought someone with experience could explain it better, that's all. Look, I'm sorry. Just forget the whole thing. I thought it might be something fun for us to explore, but I can see it's not for you. With that, she turned toward the kitchen, tossing a quick parting comment over her shoulder. Go watch your golf or whatever's on TV. I'll start dinner. I stood there for a moment, processing everything that had just happened, the tension still thick in the air as she disappeared into the next room. I didn't just sit back down on the couch and pretend nothing had happened. Instead, I headed upstairs and started packing. By the time Becky realized I wasn't watching TV and came upstairs to check on me, I had nearly finished. A suitcase was already zipped up, and I was closing the garment bag that lay across the bed. When she walked into the bedroom, the look on her face was a mixture of shock and terror. What are you doing? She asked, her voice trembling with panic. I'm making it easy for you to have sex with as many guys as you want, I said coldly, not looking at her as I finished. Her eyes filled with tears almost instantly. Oh, honey, don't do this. Don't be crazy, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I've never cheated on you. Not once, I swear. I love you. I promise I'll never bring up anything like that again. Please, please don't leave. I love you. I finally turned to face her, my heart heavy but my resolve firm. Becky, in 7 years of marriage, I can honestly say I've never even considered being with another woman. Do you know why? Because I took our marriage vows seriously. When I said, I do, I made a commitment to love, honor, and cherish you until death do us part. And I've lived by that commitment every day." Her tears spilled over, but I continued. "How can you honor your husband by reducing the ultimate expression of his love for you to just sex? How can you cherish the intimacy that's meant to be sacred between a husband and wife when you're so willing to share it with strangers? I love you, Becky, with all my heart. I probably always will." Her lip quivered as she tried to form words, but I wasn't done. "But I demand the whole package. It has to be more than just love. It has to include the honor and the cherishing too. And today, I lost that. Or at least, I realized I did." "But honey," she managed between sobs, "I never did anything. I've never been with another man since we got married." "I know that," I replied, my voice softer but still resolute. "And I do appreciate it. I really do. But sometimes, Becky, it's not the act. It's the thought that counts. What you were willing to consider, what you wanted us to entertain, it changes things for me." Her tears fell harder, but I pressed on. "Tomorrow, I'll contact our attorney to start the divorce proceedings. I want you to have half of everything, Becky. I still care about you, and I truly want you to be happy. I hope that one day, you find someone you can give that total commitment to. Because love is great, but without honor and respect, there's no foundation, no hope." She collapsed onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably as I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her behind with the weight of what had been lost. The divorce was far more grueling than either of them had anticipated. Becky, desperate to save the marriage, fought the proceedings at every turn. The court mandated multiple counseling sessions in an attempt to reconcile their differences, but Alex's resolve remained unshaken. Each session was an emotional battlefield, with Becky pleading and promising to change, while Alex quietly, but firmly, stood by his decision. "It's not about hate or anger," he told the counselor one day. "I still love her, but something broke, and I can't pretend it didn't. Living in a marriage without that foundation feels like a lie, and I refuse to live like that." Becky was devastated. Despite her initial efforts to stall the divorce, she eventually had to accept that Alex wasn't coming back. After months of legal battles, tears, and arguments, the divorce was finalized. They divided their assets evenly, as Alex had insisted from the start, and went their separate ways. The split left Becky heartbroken, but Alex found a strange sense of peace. He moved out of the city, leaving behind the life they had built together. He bought a modest farm on the outskirts of a quiet town, where he could start fresh. The farm was small but perfect for him. A few acres, a cozy farmhouse, and plenty of space to be alone with his thoughts. Life on the farm brought Alex a new kind of happiness. He spent his days tending to his garden, fixing up the old house, and taking long walks in the surrounding woods. The simplicity of his new life was a balm for his soul. Occasionally, neighbors would stop by to say hello, or a delivery person would ask why someone like him had chosen such a remote place to live. "I've had enough of people," he'd say with a small smile. "I'm happier this way." Though he was alone, Alex didn't feel lonely. The quiet gave him space to reflect and heal, and the farm gave him a sense of purpose. For the first time in years, he felt free.